Hello everybody, and welcome to my first video that's not about Gods Unchained. That is right, we're going to look at all of my games from the Alabama State Chess Championship, which was played over Labor Day weekend, or American Labor Day weekend, the beginning of September for those of you who are not from the US. So, I've been playing chess my entire life pretty much. I've been playing tournaments since I was 5 years old. My dad, Ugor, as you know in the Gods Unchained community, is a chess master with a 2200 rating and has won 8 Alabama State Chess Championships, which is the second most all time. I will be going over my games with the mindset or telling you what I was thinking throughout the games. I'm not going to be going over the engine analysis. If you would like, I'm going to put a link in the description field to my games. If you want to look at the games with an engine, be my guest. And there's, of course, the engine is better than I am, but this is getting the viewpoint and the thought processes behind my gameplay is going to be the primary focus of this video. If you want higher quality chess content, quite frankly, it's widely available on the internet. You will get my entire story for the tournament, and let's just go ahead and start diving into the games. Alright, so now we're going to look at my round number 1 game. So, for some of you who may have known, that Friday, right before the tournament, I had 3 Gods Unchained tournament matches. I got up 6 a.m. to battle people from Europe, then had to drive 4.5 hours, which was about an hour extra due to a traffic jam, to Troy, Alabama, barely make it to the playing site on time for my first round, and it is truly a long day. The good news is I did make the top half of the bracket barely. And this section is 1600 plus rated. They didn't allow people to play up as far as I could tell. And our first round opponent is against the person who was tied for the bottom rated in the section, a player who is on their 1600 rated floor. So this is a great opportunity that we want to capitalize on, and let's just go ahead and dive into the game here. We open with e4, we've got the white pieces here, d6, and here we're just developing our pieces. Our opponent here, they're taking the approach that they're going to let me just take the center, and I'm just saying, okay, I'll take the center for free. Here I pose the question to his bishop, he exchanges his bishop for my knight, which is very nice for me. So I really like my position early on here, just doing solid developing moves, and everything about my position is very, very good. Just exchanging here, going to go ahead and play bishop e2. I don't want to let them exchange their knight for my bishop. I would much prefer to keep the bishops. Here they play a6, and this is very weakening. It just poses a hole on this b6 square, so I would love to catapult a piece into that square. So what we're going to do is we're going to play b4. One thing to note here is if my opponent tries to capture there, we actually trap their queen with rook b1, the idea of playing rook b3, and this queen is actually completely trapped. It is just lost. So they cannot take the pawn. That is one thing to note. However, our opponent, they play, after b4, they play queen c7, so they don't fall for the trap. Just want to point out that pawn was not really hanging. We play knight a4, hitting here. Now, you could say that this pawn is hanging, but if they play here, we play here, we're hitting the knight, and we're also threatening to play bishop here, and then the queen and the rook are under attack. So our opponent did not fall for that one either. And they just move their knight back here. They're guarding this square. As I mentioned before, I saw this weakness on b6 and wanted to attack it. So here we play f3 to defend this pawn. They just blindly play a rook move, and we play c4. And here our opponent is in a really difficult position. The reason why it's difficult is none of their pieces can really move. I mean, they can try something like this, but that doesn't accomplish anything. Maybe they try to open things up, but then again, you're opening lines up in front of your king. Then we can do things like this, which is super, super annoying, especially with your queen right there. Our opponent makes a difficult decision and wants to untangle their pieces. They move their knight to h5, which allows me, and I have a significant edge before this move, but this allows me to take a materialistic edge. So now I have a pawn to show for my advantage. And a lot of things just get traded here. and they go ahead and play b5. What I want to do is I want to make them take here. If they take here, we can recapture, and then these two pawn islands are very weak and easy to attack. Here they go ahead and they play knight b8. They want to trade everything off, and I'm like, well, I'm winning, so okay, I'll trade everything off. And then here we play a4. This forces the issue. This forces them to either take this way, which are knight recaptures, and then these two are weak, or that forces them to take this way, which are bishop captures, and these two are weak. So our opponent does neither, which just gives us a free pawn. That was definitely a mistake on their end, and they give us the pawn in a slightly fancy way. But here we've got two extra pawns, and we have a bishop instead of their knight, so everything is just in our advantage entering this ending. Here we just want to play solid moves. I'm putting my pawns on dark squares to give more scope for my bishop. Here they go ahead and play g5. We exchange, we get this check-in for free, and I don't want to have all the pawns come off. The thing is, if I trade off all of these pawns, then the problem is if they're able to sack one of these knights for two pawns, which is actually probably logistically going to be difficult for them, then the game actually ends up in a draw. So we want to avoid that since we have the advantage, so just keeping pawns on the board. But we're getting our king into the game, which is excellent. Our bishop needs an idea, but we're just going to reroute it over this direction. Here, we're going to offer to trade off our bishop for a knight, and they're going to go ahead and do this. This is good for us since we have the two-pawn advantage, and it's just really a struggle for them to do anything. Here, they have no ideas. They're moving their king back and forth. They run into a tactic. We take this pawn, and when they take, we do the pawn fork check here. And we go here, and in this position they resign. This ending is trivial to convert for someone at my level. And we get a quick win in game number 1. Ultimately, I don't think I did anything amazing in this game. However, I played very solid. My opponent made some mistakes. I capitalized. We grew a small edge in the opening and gradually improved our position the entire game to the point that it was just winning at the end. So this is ultimately a very successful round number 1, and I have nothing to complain about, nothing to be sad about, especially because last year in round number 1, I played a 1600 and I was minus 22. Before coming back and winning. That game, a little bit more eventful than this one. This is pretty straightforward, and I'm pretty happy with the end result here. After a good night's sleep, we advance to round number 2. And in this round, we go on and we're taking on the defending state champion. I've actually never played this person before, which is rare for people from Alabama, as most people I've played in Alabama multiple times. But this person recently moved here from out of state and came here. I think one of his first tournaments was last year's state championship, where he went 5 wins and 0 losses. And I went 2 wins and 3 losses. But anyways, this is a new tournament, a new year, and I want to send him a welcome message to Alabama that, hey, you don't just waltz in here and win the state championship easily every single year. He did win his round 1 match. I won my round 1 match. So we're both 1-0, and let's go ahead and get into the game here. We have the black pieces in this game, and it's just a standard kind of D4 stuff going on here. Nothing too exciting. We're just moving pieces. Here, I decided to try to play a bingo that was like mega delayed, and this thematically is probably very questionable, but equally questionable is them declining my insane idea. And we are just doing kind of normal things here. And here's the critical moment of the game. I decide that I want to bust open this position. And in fairness, this position is probably equalish if I take a slow maneuvering idea and don't do anything crazy. However, the thematic break in this position is e6. And I thought that I could get away with it. This is absolutely incorrect. In this exact position, I'm just absolutely busted. This was a horrendous move, a complete blunder, which should throw the game. So here we see this play out. This pawn's being attacked. I have to defend it. I don't have many great ways to defend this pawn. So I move my knight back to e8, and then here's the move that I missed. I did actually see knight c4, but I missed bishop h3, and now I'm in a lot of trouble in this game. As you can see, this pawn is hanging, And this is not a pawn that you want to lose. You lose this pawn, you are in a really, really bad position. And the only way to defend this pawn is by pushing it, because if I hypothetically were to play rook here, they move their bishop here, and this rook is under attack, and then this pawn falls. Or I give up this rook for the bishop, which is pretty bad. The other option I have is what I end up playing. So I have to decide, do I want to be a pawn down, this pawn down, and then everything else in the position is pretty bad. This d6 pawn is an issue. His bishop is great, and everything just looks really, really bad. I decide to play e5. And I do see the tactic that happens in the game. He takes, and here he's going to win my rook for his knight, winning the exchange. The reason why I went for this line is because of queen h3. I thought that without his light squared bishop, potentially there could be some airy spots in front of his king that could be potentially problematic. The computer does not like this idea, but anyways, we go ahead and do it. He takes there, and here I play knight f6, not recapturing the knight immediately. And this looks like a kind of a complete blunder until you realize hypothetically, if he tries to save his knight, I can play knight g4, and I'm threatening checkmate. The only way to guard against checkmate is to actually give up your queen, and this would actually be very good for me. Our opponent, of course, does not fall for that. So after knight f6, they play f3. So we led with knight f6 first to force f3. Again, getting them to move more pawns in front of their kings, giving us more potential things to attack in our position. Now we are forced to take back the knight, so we're only down an exchange. And they threaten a trade of pieces. We do not want to trade pieces here. Here we are threatening to play knight takes pawn, and after pawn takes, then we can get the perpetual check going on here. But of course, they defend against that. The queen guards right there onto g2, and we are no longer threatening that line. We go h6, and here this is somewhat complicating because if hypothetically, if they take here, then we have this move, which is just complete chaos. However, apparently in this line, it is very favorable for white in this position, even though I feel like I got my exchange back and I feel like I'm accomplishing something. After d6 falls, this is very favorable for white. So even my trap that I set up for my opponent in this line is very chaotic, but it is in my opponent's favor still. So I can't even set up good traps. However, our opponent is not going to want to do this here. They see this and they retreat because that line is too chaotic for them to get in. And I don't blame them. They're ahead. There's no reason to take this super insane line. Playing g5, obviously the idea of playing g4 and potentially getting my queen trapped is something that I would do normally. That is very on brand for me, getting my queen trapped in a situation like that. They play queen e2, so they're playing queen e2. They're threatening a6. However, I'm not super concerned about that. Like, if they want to move their queen all the way over here and play a6 and just cause some chaos, that's fine with me. So I play a waiting move. So this is basically like, hey, if you take there, then maybe I take it over here and we cause some chaos, whatnot. I did not actually think he would take the pawn, but to me it made no sense why he played queen e2 if he didn't plan on taking on a6, and it turns out he definitely planned on taking on a6. Now here's something that's very interesting to me. Now queen a6 is the #1 computer move, so you can't say that it is a bad move. I think it's very bad in terms of game theory optimal gameplay, because he is allowing me to play knight takes g3. And what's going to happen here in this position, this is just going to delve into complete chaos. So you see here, he takes this pawn here. He's threatening the rook, so I have to move the rook. And he only has one move that just doesn't get absolutely destroyed immediately, and that's moving the rook up to the guard against the checkmate. Queen to g2 was threatening checkmate. So we exchange, and here we play knight h5. And this is the key move at the end of the line that I think my opponent missed. Not 100% sure. But right now, he can't do what I think he wanted to do, which is do this and grab the bishop, because then we play knight f4, and actually checkmate is unstoppable. It sounds bizarre, but they cannot stop checkmate. And I mean, you can throw in a meaningless check, but checkmate is indeed inevitable. and that is what he can't play. So that line is interesting to me. So oh wait, we fast forwarded a little bit too far. Wow, we went back way too far. Okay, so here in this position, our opponent has okay. So yeah, here in this position, they've got one obvious move to me, or one main move. And if they play knight e2 here, our position is very difficult. It's hard to see how we can continue here. They're threatening to play here and take here. If we move our knight here, they just take. And we're not really making any progress whatsoever. I guess what they're worried about is queen takes pawn. This pawn does hang, but they lose the pawn and then grab the bishop here. I think this is okay for them. So it's interesting they elected not to play knight e2, which to me seemed like the best move, and they instead they play bishop to g3. So they play bishop to g3, and okay, we just take it, and they get this bishop in the corner. However, trading this bishop, which was very out of play, for their bishop, which was a key defender, seems like an excellent trade to me. And the knight comes back here, and we're threatening the same idea. We're threatening to play knight f4, and we are threatening to threaten checkmate after that. Our opponent plays rook to f1. It guards this pawn, and it has the idea of playing rook to f2 to guard against the checkmate. We're going to play the move anyways and threaten the checkmate. And now here we've got a bit of a chaos. We play g4. So if they take here, their knight hangs, so that's a problem. If they don't take here, then g3 is a problem. And this is just complete chaos. They do find the correct move, which is queen c8. So I can't move this pawn, otherwise I lose my queen. Now, it is a little bit complicated. There are lines where, hypothetically, I can do something like this, but this doesn't work out for me because, like, at the end of this line, this pawn just wins them the game. So that's just a hypothetical line that could have happened. But it is worth noting that I can't move the pawn after this. So what do? I play queen to h4, and we're threatening to play knight here and win the rook. They throw in a check, we move our king, and they take the pawn. And we are still worse in this position, but we get this check in, and then we take the rook. Now, here's a critical decision in this game. So they just lost their rook, so now they're down a piece. However, the winning strategy for them is to not take this knight. They need to not take the knight. They can play like knight e4, they can play a6, they can just not take the knight. The problem with taking the knight here is, well, is what happens in the game. So they take the knight, we play queen h3, so we get their knight, and now we are up we're up this bishop. Now, this bishop in particular isn't particularly amazing. It is boxed in by this pawn. This pawn's also in the way, so it has problems. So here they play queen a2. We block the check, and they play a6. So now here we need to figure out the best ways to check here. So we lead with queen e3. We want to take some pawns here and get more than just this compensation. If we could get this bishop into the game, we feel like we're accomplishing something. They move their king, and here we can take this pawn because the tactics hold. And they make the game-losing blunder, which is a7, which loses to queen h1. And then they resigned in this position. They resigned here. So they resigned in this position. The game could have continued like this, and then the queen blocks there. So the key here is that this is kind of the move they miss. Now, hypothetically, if they play a move like this or something that doesn't drop their queen, this position is incredibly complicating. And the computer line to win this game is so precise, and it involves like a crazy series of checks, and then the bishop coming into the game this way, and then like potentially me allowing them to queen in some lines is absolutely absurd. So would I have found it if you played perfectly? Probably not. I mean, a lot of these lines just peter out into a repetition draw. But the final position in the game Let's see here. Yeah, after taking here, I do have I technically have the advantage, but I mean, if they play it perfectly, then we probably don't. So that game was very interesting. I thought I was worse the majority of the game. We took a desperation line, sacrificed the exchange, threw an unsound attack, and a little bit of greed with their idea of taking on A6 and then D6. Got them into a little bit of troubles, got the game a little bit complicated. And I do want to point out that you might be wondering, how can a player, 2100 miss the Queen H1 idea? At the end of the game, he was in a lot of time trouble. In fact, this game took about 4 hours. We took near the completely allotted amount of time. And we're both very low on time. And this position, this ending right here is incredibly complicated. I looked at it with the computer and my head hurt after looking at it. There was a lot of nuances with this ending. And there was no way that me or my opponent would be able to calculate all that. But, of course, he ends up blundering his queen, and that ends the game. So we advance to 2-0, knocking off the defending state champion. We're feeling pretty good about things heading into round number 3, and we're going to see if we can keep the magic rolling. So we are 2-0 entering the second game on Saturday. We are one of 7 perfect scores remaining in the tournament. However, I am the lowest rated of the 7, which means I take on the highest rated person with 1.5, and that is Alexander Rutan, a master from Georgia. He gave up a draw in round number 1, a disappointing start for the tournament for him before winning his second round. My all-time head-to-head record against Rutan is pretty pathetic. It's 0 wins and 3 losses. And it's my actual games were not as close as that sounds. It sounds like I played him 3 times, when in reality it's questionable whether or not I played him at all. It's just been getting destroyed over and over again. Not good, not competitive games. We hope to change that here in the third round after coming off a big come-from-behind win in round number 2. Can that momentum carry over to this game? Here we just go through the opening real quick here. I take the conservative approach with Bishop E2. I didn't want to get into something super thematic with him. I wanted to just kind of equalize and then play chess, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. I played Rook D1. A lot of times I castle in these situations. However, I thought that this B5, B4 ideas with already prepping A6 was going to be very quick, and I thought that I would be worse. So maybe I was, maybe I wasn't here. Here he's going to go ahead and put his rook on this file. Pretty thematic stuff from him. And here we played knight e1. And this is kind of the first moment in the game that the computer said that I'm doing something stupid here. Granted, in this position, it's hard to come up with a plan. My idea here is to push f3, push f4, maybe launch my rook over here, and then start sacking stuff, and I don't know, maybe get some things here, make an illegal move with my light square bishop, and hopefully he won't see it. So, something like that is what we were hoping for. And they go ahead and they play knight a5. They want to move their knight here is what they're saying. And we're just going to be like, okay, we're going to go through with our plan. You do your little thing over here, and we're just going to give you the bishop. And they go ahead and take there. Now, granted, instead of playing knight c4, they played rook c3. The computer said they were destroying me, but they did not play that, so we don't have to worry about that at the moment. And f5, and here is where I enter a pretty difficult spot. So this pawn is definitely going to fall. They can take here. Their rook is threatening this pawn as well, and that is very problematic for me. I do not have a way to defend this pawn. So let's get crazy here. We decide to play bishop h6. And here, my opponent, he tanks for about 30 minutes here. This is a difficult decision for him within this game. Again, each of us have 2 hours throughout this game. So he can spend 30 minutes on one move. So this felt like the critical decision for him. And he decides that he doesn't want to take my bishop. He wants to take this pawn and take this pawn. So we still have this bishop here in the corner. It is asking a question like, do you ever want to take it or not? And we decide that, hey, we don't want to defend this bishop. We can move our bishop back and retreat. However, we think our sack is sound and we're doubling down. We are doubling down. We're daring him to take that bishop. And he is not taking the bishop. And we are just going to say, okay, we're going to play rook g3. So now he can't take the bishop because our queen takes here, and this is pinned, and that's not good for him. So he has to play bishop f6, and we've got a good-looking attack here. And by good-looking attack, I mean the computer is not impressed, but I feel like I'm doing a lot of things here, and this is the first time I've played him in a game, but I've really liked my position. I really like what we've got cooking here. So we play knight f3, we're posing the question to his rook, which only has one spot square it can go to, and it's just kind of amazing that we just don't have a way to just completely punish him. Unfortunately, his pawn cannot jump over here, and do that. That's not an illegal move, and then their rook could just take here. So my pieces just aren't coordinated for the final blow that I need them to be coordinated for. We just play bishop g5 here, and they go ahead and play e4, which is going to lead to an exchange here. And here's a critical moment in the game. I have to decide, do I want to play for the win or do I want to play for the draw? Now, the way to play for the draw, and I did see this as an option in the game, is I play queen e to d4. Hypothetically, if I play this, they pretty much have to exchange because we're threatening to take their queen for free. So they're pretty much forced to exchange, and this line is very likely to peter out like this, something like this, and this position is all zeros. This would have been very likely to happen, these exact moves. This game likely ends up in a draw, I would think. Obviously, my opponent being higher rated is going to put me to the test here, and I actually think that my position is slightly better. My rooks are slightly more active, I think. Except this guy is a little bit awkward blocking this pawn. I think I'm slightly better here, but realistically, this game ends up a draw in most cases. However, I did not think that I wanted a draw because I thought that my position was better. So I play knight d4. And here he takes. And I take. And for some reason, I thought this would be good for me. And I make one key error at the end of this. I saw queen b2, and then I saw c3, and I thought, aha, I'm boxing out his queen. His queen can't get back there because of this. And then we're threatening to come in here and cause lots of chaos. But the key move being queen f2, and suddenly, in this position, I kind of realized I messed up. And the reason that I messed up is this pawn is very, very quick, and I'm actually not really threatening anything at all. It's kind of depressing. So, I mean, realistically, my best move is probably here, trade off queens, and then try to hold this. It's not as good as the position I would have had before. I'm just down a pawn. I'm basically playing for a draw, a two-result game, either a draw or a loss by doing that. But I'm delusional and still think that there's attacking chances here. So we're going to do this, and then we play rook to d3. So basically, the other thing I could have done here is something like this, but we're actually not really getting anywhere here. I mean, as much as I want to try to do tricks, it's very, very difficult to find the knockout below. So we play rook d4, and they go ahead and they move their rook to e6, basically blocking our queen from coming into here. And we play rook d6, being like, hey, if you take here, we take here, and then we take here, and then we've got good things going, right? But of course, he's not going to allow that happening. He's threatening this rook for real and pinning this rook, which is very, very annoying. We go ahead and protect our rook by moving it, and then they just play e3, saying, hey, you're doing absolutely nothing. And he's correct. We are doing absolutely nothing. So here we go ahead, and we're trying to threaten a check here. Trying. But yeah, we're in time pressure in this stage of the game as well. It's not an excuse, we're just lost, but we'll always throw that in as an excuse because you never know. And in this position, I resign. There's no way to stop the e pawn from queening, and we're just lost. That game. We went through it pretty quickly. It was pretty complicated after the whole idea on the bishop takes h6. This got pretty insane pretty quickly, and we went through it very quickly. things just didn't work out. There were a lot of things to calculate here from his point of view and from my point of view. This game ended up taking the full 4 hours. One of the last games done in the round, and I've had back-to-back games that have gone the distance. So back-to-back 4-hour games, and there is still one game left to play in the day, and we're now 2 wins and 1 loss. Still alive, in contention for everything. 1 loss doesn't eliminate you in this tournament, but a second would, pretty much, because there is no under 2,000 prize. So yeah, I need to get to top. I need to basically win out, maybe 4.5, get something, but we need to really step up and finish strong here. After back-to-back 4-hour games and a tough loss in round number 3, we advance to round number 4, and I take on a player who is pretty active in South Alabama. However, I'm from North Alabama, so our paths don't cross very often except in state championships, and we've actually only ever played once, back in 2010, a game that ended up losing. So, I mean, you could call this a revenge matchup, but I don't really remember much from that game. But here we are, and this is a pivotal game. We just need to win this to stay alive in the tournament. 3 out of 4 would be a good score. So here we go ahead, and on move number 1, I'm already out of book. You know, they play knight f6 on move 1, and I haven't played one of these in probably about 12 years. I'm just throwing that number out there because maybe he played this against me 12 years ago, and I just didn't remember. So here, I don't know the theory, so don't copy any of my opening moves. They're probably terrible. We play h4, and this may or may not be justified. I don't know. But see, my idea is he moved this knight that's normally on this side of the board, and then he moved it over here. So that means we can attack him, right? I think that's justification. But anyways, a little bit unorthodox, a little bit early here. They go ahead and they mess up their pawn structure. I make a bad move. This is just horrendous. This is like a concession that it was a stupid move to play bishop f4. Honestly, I would much rather, from a spirit of the chess game standpoint, just give up the stupid pawn. Just give it up. I get that it's under attack. I get that I don't want to do any of like this stuff, but because it just is weak. But like, why defend the pawn? Just go forward here. Like, charge. Like, let's attack here. Let's play some spirited chess. But I move backwards because, I don't know, I'm feeling rather spineless on that move in the game. But you know, things are going to change. Now, 1 move later, he's threatening to win another pawn. Okay, so should I guard said pawn? Like, you know, be consistent? No, FakeMews is like, nah, I'm going to do absolutely nothing consistent in this game. I'm just going to give them that pawn. And for some reason, I felt like making a concession to defend this pawn. And then for this pawn, I'm just going to do absolutely nothing. So we go ahead, we push forward here, and believe it or not, the computer says all this is fine. Except it didn't like this. It's like, I thought I had an advantage until I played bishop e3, but, you know, it is what it is. So they go ahead, and I didn't want to castle anyways. This rook has this file, and this rook is probably better on, like, you know, here, one of those squares. So I'm fine with all of this. They play knight c4. They want to trade off this bishop, which has moved like 17 times in this game. And I'm like, no, I don't want to trade off the bishop. So here, I'm giving up this pawn if they want it, but they lose their rook. And they go ahead and take it. They sacrifice the exchange. A very interesting play. And we go ahead, and this position is relatively even. And we go ahead and lay rook h4, which is fine, and then e4, 5 happens. And this is one of the key moves of the game. So for me this basically decides whether or not I'm playing for a win or whether or not I'm playing for a draw. The key move in this position is b3. And this move is very scary to find, but after takes, rook c1, knight checks here, the bishop comes back here, and we get the piece back. That's the important thing to note. And then they have 2 pawns and either a bishop or a knight for one of my rooks. They've got weaknesses to target. This position is generally going to be favorable for myself in terms of attempting to win the game. Might still be drawn with perfect play, but this is definitely what I should have gone with. However, b3 is a very scary move to play because if you lose that knight, if he's able to save the piece, then you just flat out lose the game. And I didn't calculate that line all the way through. Granted, there's some fatigue here from my perspective, but I go ahead and play rook c1. This loses the b2 pawn, and really at this point of the game, I'm not really playing for a win. My opponent has 3 pawns for the exchange, which is more than enough compensation, and this is a difficult position for me to play, and I need to play very accurately, otherwise I get myself into a lot of trouble. Here, I'm in between 2 moves. I'm in between moving my knight here and moving my king here. The reason why I want to move my knight here is to get it activated, but I thought that maybe he gained some time for this for free. However, planting my knight on a square like this or this would have been very effective. Or even back here with the idea of going here, that would have been okay too. But instead, I play king e2. I want to prevent this, because that move is very scary. However, he just plays f5, and now I have a question what to do with this knight. I can't move here because this knight takes it. I can't move. I mean, I can move there, and I mean, I could move here, but it's awkward to move here because either my rook takes or my king takes, and this falls, which is very, very awkward. So I play knight b1, which is just dreadfully slow, and they go ahead. They play c4. I'm at c5 to open, to protect this pawn, to keep my rook kind of boxed into the game. Here we go knight d2, they play e4, and I kind of missed the idea here. I thought that they were just trying to get some scope for their bishop, but I really missed the key point of the move, which happens right here. He plays knight d3, and now this rook has nowhere good to go, and our position is very, very difficult. He could already take this pawn if he wants it, but he's like, I don't even want it. I do not even want it. And then after bishop to g7, my rook cannot take this pawn, for instance, because of this, working the king and the rook. So since we can't take that pawn, this whole rook h6 idea looks kind of stupid, since we can't even take. So we just go ahead and retreat. We give him a free move. Again, I should have gone all the way back to h2 the first time, but we eventually find our way to the correct square. They go ahead and play rook b8. Their idea is to get their rook involved in the game, and suddenly his rook is better than either of my rooks. My pieces are absolutely terrible, and in this game, in this ending, we have been outplayed so far. f3 to try to get some breathing room or something. We go king d1. They play c4, knight c1, and this is very, very ugly. This pawn is crashing through. We go ahead and play g3. That way my rook can kind of get into the game. And this is very scary. My king is tied to the back rank. All my pieces are there. I can never take here because the 2 connected pawns on the 6th are worth more than a rook. That is, I mean, that's a saying in chess, but that genuinely is generally true. So I can't allow that to happen. We just play... after knight d3, we go ahead and play rook f1, and now this is, I mean, our only move that doesn't lose instantly is rook c2, and yeah, this position is very difficult to play. We take here, and here our opponent, they make a blunder, which favors us for sure. They should play here, and then in a line, you know, the line can continue multiple different ways. I think this was the correct move. And then after something like this, then I can never make progress here, right? We can never exchange this here because of this pawn. And they basically march their king up. They have all day, and then they win the game. So that I believe is the cleanest line for my opponent. However, they play bishop takes c1, and here is a critical moment in the game where I need to find the best move. So the best move is king e2, and the reason will be obvious after I show you what happened in the game. But the idea is that we're kicking this knight, and this knight is defending this bishop. If he plays rook up here, our king can just take here, and this knight has nowhere productive to go. For instance, if he goes here, we just take like this. This pawn is hanging, and he's actually got to be very careful not to lose this game. Like, I believe the engine line, the only move that kept an advantage was this, and that's a hard move to play. if I'm being completely honest. The idea is that it's check, and that he can play another check, and then he can secure this bishop, and this bishop with this pawn on the 6th rank, it's basically near even, but an advantage for our opponent. However, I do not find the best move here. I play king c2. And the reason why it's not the best move is he gets in e2 for free. And that move makes absolutely all the difference. We have to move our rook. And then after this check, I've only got one realistic move here I have to take. After this check, I've got only one realistic move. I have to go king e3. After this check, I only have one realistic move I have to take. And then here we get to this ending. This ending is absolutely completely lost for me. Unfortunately, I can't take his rook because he gets a queen. So I have to go ahead, move my rook, and here in this game, this position, I stopped keeping score. My opponent has like 1 minute on his clock right now, and this ending is objectively dead lost. So the way what I did here was I just tried to play really quickly and hope he blundered in his time pressure. He did not. He goes on to convert this ending. Not really a surprise. This is definitely a winning ending that I would expect him to convert. Unfortunately, this sends us down to 2 wins and 2 losses after back-to-back tough losses. And we are officially out of prize contention with 2 points, but still got 2 games to play tomorrow morning. And yeah, this is definitely disappointing. And there were moments here that I think I could have played a lot better. But I mean, I really played every stage of the game. I made some questionable decisions, and you can blame fatigue or you can just blame not being good at chess. Use your favorite excuse, but we will go on and play round number 5 tomorrow morning anyways. So after a disappointing Saturday where we finished with 1 win and 2 losses after playing basically 11 hours of chess, we go on to Sunday, officially eliminated from prize contention, and I'm playing an opponent that I don't think I've ever played before, which they're young and up and coming. So here we just go ahead in the opening. This is all very, very standard all through here. This has been played before. So here in this game, oh, I've got the engine on. Okay, it says all zeros. So I'll turn the engine on a little bit later for something I'll show. But anyways, here I basically in this position I need to play bishop c5, and then we continue to play chess. But I play bishop to d6, which is a mistake. And now they play h3, and this position is very awkward. So I either have to exchange this bishop for this knight, which is not good, or I have to take here, because if I go here, then we get forked, and that's not fun. So we take, and they play knight to e5. And this is a tough spot here. I try to protect my queen, and then on g3, my queen is trapped. And yeah, here I'm very disappointed with the way I've ended up playing this. It's not very good. It's not very spirited. Whenever you get your queen trapped or make a blunder, the key here is to escape with the best possible position that you can have and then continue fighting later in this game. And there is a line that I can play that adds some complications, but I'm first going to show you what I did in the game and then show you what I should have done. So here I take the rook, thinking that that's the most compensation. Again, I'm assuming that he's just going to take back here, and then maybe we can get, you know, a couple of pawns for a rook, and a couple of pawns and a rook for the queen. But they're playing precise. They're actually finding good moves, and we're not. So they take there. My queen is still trapped. We take here. They just take back, and my queen is still trapped. Which is just absurd. So we give up our queen, and now our knight is trapped. And yeah, we'll just go through this pretty quickly. I resign in this position because there is nothing. I mean, I'm down. I haven't exchanged as compensation for a queen, which is, yeah, there's no point in playing on this. So that game was really, really bad. Like, I mean, I've played some really bad chess games, so calling it the worst I've ever played is up there. but it's definitely down there in terms of effort. So here, this is the key position. This is the key position. And in this position, what I need to play is queen takes d4. And there's only one line here that white keeps an advantage. They have to find knight takes c6, and then after we exchange here, then oh wait, so okay, after we take here, after we take their queen with our queen, they have to not take the queen. They have to go here, and then after this, they've got this. And white has an advantage. They have 4 pieces. We have 3. And they were able to save this knight, basically, is the line. So that's what my opponent would have to find. Really ask them a question, and then they're only up a piece for, you know, a piece for a pawn, which is a very significant advantage. But we've got chances to play on in this position and maybe give them something to think about later in this game. However, like, for instance, if they just flat out, like, take the queen, then the engine is like, on bishop e5, we're actually doing fine here. Like, this is only plus 1.32 for white. We're getting just so much compensation for the queen that we end up with a very competitive chess game, and who knows what happens. I mean, I've come back from positions like this before. When I said I've dropped my queen like 4 times, you know, in the past 4 tournaments, like, I got a win and a draw on those. So, and a loss, of course. So, it's not like we automatically lose all of those games. We got our queen trapped here, and there was a line to make the game exciting, and we just didn't do that. I figured I would show this line because it was much more exciting than what I played. But none of this happened, and who knows, maybe our opponent finds knight c6, knight a7, and just has the piece up position, which they should be able to convert. Who knows what would have happened, but this game certainly disappointing. The effort here was pretty terrible, and the key position, in the key position here, you know, this was just a this was just a bad idea thematically, and then h3 was kind of obvious, and then this is probably a bad idea. I spent a lot of time on bishop h3, but I was analyzing this. I was analyzing this stuff, which is a completely different line than, you know, what was played. I completely missed my queen getting trapped, which is not good, not good at all. And then in this position, it's all about finding a way to get the most out of the position here, and queen d4 is absolutely necessary to find. Absolutely necessary, and we're unable to find the move. When we force your opponent to play this line, which is just absolutely tough to find, that is very difficult, but we don't do it, and we get the loss in game number 5. So after a very disappointing round number 5 to kick off the day, I am very well rested entering this round because that game was one of the first done. Unfortunately, I got a great Pokemon walk in on the Troy University campus. I turned all the Pokemon gyms the correct color, which is red, go Team Valor, and had a great lunch at Popeyes. So aside from the chess, my Sunday is going absolutely superb, and I've had a great day. It was a beautiful day outside on that day, except the times that I got rained on, but you know. You deal with the water falling from the sky much better than the 9,000 degree heat that we've been dealing with in Alabama. Anyways, entering this round, we're just trying to salvage a miniature amount of pride, and let's just go ahead and dive into the game and see what happens here. We have the black pieces again, and we end up in a very similar opening to what we played last game. I played queen a5, which is a mistake. I'm supposed to play queen h5, but last game, my queen got trapped when I moved to h5, so I moved to a5 this game. Therefore, nothing can go wrong, right? Well, I mean, our opponent, you know, they watched the game film, apparently, of the previous game, so they're going to chase my queen around the entire board. We're 11 moves into this game, and I've moved my queen 5 times. I'm doing everything right, everybody. Yeah. Anyways, that's a sign of a great chess player is, oh, I've got this engine. See, the engine says we're fine. The engine says we're fine. I didn't mean to have that up, but yeah, we're doing okay. We're doing okay. But anyways, they play c3. We go ahead and we move our h-pawn because why not? And they move their queen. We move our h-pawn again. They get their knight here, which is mildly annoying, so we kick it, and then we go move our g-pawn up the board because that seemed like the thing to do. They want to trade queens, and I mean, they can force it, so I'm not going to do it on my terms. I'm going to make them make the move. They go ahead and line their rook with my queen, and I move this pawn up there, so this pawn is in the way now. So there you go. I win that battle. And they're going to go ahead with their pawn storm on our king side. I'm going to pawn storm their king side. And then one of us is going to win the game. That's the hope. I'm just hoping for not a draw at this point. They kick our knight. Their bishop threatens here, which actually isn't a threat. Because if they take here, then hypothetically, all right, I'm going to play my next move, which is the move that happened in the game. Hypothetically, if they take here, we take here. And this is fine for me. Our bishop is on a grid square. Their knight has a good looking square, but doesn't really accomplish very much. So that is that line. They elect to just take here, which does open a line in front of their king. And we elect to check their queen, and haha, we get them to trade queens. So we baited them into making that decision, and now our knight gets this beautiful d7 square. This f5 square is stolen from their knight as well. So they're going to go ahead through with their pawn storm. We're going to relocate this bishop to a better square successfully. Now, one thing to note here is I definitely do not want to take here because this is really bad for me. My king is going to be boxed in. This pawn's going to be super annoying, and I don't have a clear way to win the pawn, especially with this rook over here. So we did not want to do that. And we're just going to go ahead and just move our knight and let him exchange the pawn. Our king is brilliant on b7. And they're going to go ahead and ask the question to our rook. And here is where I make my one bit of good calculation in this entire tournament. I'm able to calculate a win of a pawn, and I'll go ahead and show the line. And it is very complicated. I spent a lot of time on this, actually. We throw in the check, and then exchange the bishops, and then take this pawn on d5. And the complicated line is what he played, which is rook c5. So he is pinning my knight to this rook and this rook at the same time. And it's worth noting there's only one way to hold this together, and that is with c6. And the reason why it holds this together is he can't bust things open with this, because I could actually hang both of my rooks at the same time, and he can't do anything about it. Weird line, but it works. So with that analysis in mind, I played the line, I saw c6, and all of this was indeed very sound. However, my opponent plays knight c4, which is actually a blunder in itself, and the same logic that I used for my calculation on why b5 didn't work, I can use for this move and find my favorite move I played the entire tournament, which was knight b4. I am hanging both of my rooks at the same time, and the computer says I'm a genius. I'm even hanging rook b1. There's like 9,000 different ways to win material for my opponent, except he can't win material. It is truly amazing that this tactically works, but it does. So he takes the rook on d8, I take the rook on c5. He gets this check in, which gets him back one of the two pawns that he is down, but we are now up a pawn in an ending, or semi-ending, and feel good about the position. Rook, not centralize our knight here. We're going to move our rook to a good square. They're going to centralize their knight. And here, after all that good calculation I made in this game, I make a blunder. Play rook takes f2. And now, in this position, if my opponent finds knight c5, apparently the game is drawn. The line is very complicating, and honestly, I probably end up losing if he finds this move. The reason being is I have to allow perpetual check, otherwise I get myself caught in a mating net. The computer line is pretty complicated, and I don't have it memorized, but all I know is this is a mistake, and the game should peter out to a draw, but it doesn't. He plays rook b8, which is a very scary looking move, and he is threatening to play, he's threatening this. He's threatening to play knight here, and then my king comes up there, knight here is checkmate. So that is a problem. That is definitely a problem, but we go ahead and guard against this move, which is good. And they take the pawn, which is reasonable, and they go ahead and play rook b3. we go ahead and defend our knight that's hanging, and they check us. And here's an interesting position. If I play here, the game is drawn to this move, which is amazing. And if I play here, then we lose the game. So we don't want to do that. So there's only one move that keeps the advantage for me, and that is the move I play, King B6. And then after they check me, we go King A5. And the idea is if they check me again, we come up one square, because this would be an illegal move, and they can check me again. And then, like, yeah, for instance, this could happen, and we're fine here. There's no more checks. We are holding, and meanwhile we're breaking through over here somewhere. So that's how that was that line. But rook b3, king, yeah, go ahead here, and then they play knight here. All right, so this is their blunder that loses them the game officially. There is no comeback from here. We just get in the simple check. Their king moves, we take the free knight, and here there's just no perpetual or anything. And we go ahead, check, and we played 5 rounds of chess. This is the sixth and final round of chess we've played. We haven't had a checkmate. All 5 of our other games ended resignation, and our last move of the chess tournament is indeed a checkmate. Bam. Our knights cover all of the escape squares, and the rook guards the back rank. And we end the tournament with a checkmate in our favor. So we end up finishing the tournament at 3 wins and 3 losses. Not our best event. So yeah, there's not much else to say about that. Our rating goes from 1984 down to 1980. I've been above 2000 a few different times, but we have now lost rating points in 3 consecutive tournaments. We lost less in this one than we did in the prior 2. Prior 2 were not very good. And another not so flattering streak I have going is back-to-back tournaments with a 3-game losing streak at one point of the tournament. It's disappointing. On the bright side, we did play some competitive games. Our round 1 was very solid. Our round 2 was very exciting, though we definitely got a better result than we deserved. Rounds 3 and 4, the games were very exciting. Round 3 may have been the best game I played the entire tournament. I went for the win against a master and made a bad decision there, but it was definitely a very exciting game and the most competitive game I've personally played against him. For those of you who are curious, my round 3 opponent went on to win out, and he finished with clear first place in the entire tournament. So congratulations to him. He obviously played well after the Friday night game where he gave up a draw. Went on undefeated, perfect score on Saturday and Sunday. He is from Georgia, however, so he is not eligible to win the Alabama State Chess Championship title, though he is definitely eligible to take that first place prize money, which he did. The Alabama State Championship title goes once again to Scott Varagona, who has the record for the most Alabama State Chess Championship titles. He finished in second place in the tournament with 5 points out of 6, only losing to my round 3 opponent, Alexander Rudin. So we ended up, he ended up finishing clear second, but gets the state championship title as the highest ranked Alabama participant. For those of you curious, Ugor finished undefeated in the tournament. That is right. He finished with 2 wins and 4 draws. I don't know. I don't even know. How do you finish with 2 wins and 4 draws? I do not know. We need, next time before we go to another chess tournament together, I need to show him the clip of Herm Edwards saying that you played to win the game. Because obviously he was doing something wrong. I honestly haven't even seen his games, but I mean, how do you end up with 4 draws in one tournament? Honestly, I don't think I've ever had 4 draws in one tournament. It's kind of impressive. In fact, I went back and looked at my own tournaments, and I haven't had a draw since COVID happened. I've had 20 consecutive games without a draw, and that one draw was pretty quick. But anyways, intentional draws are illegal, and we definitely don't condone that type of action here. Anyways, now that I cleared myself with that great disclaimer, anyways, I hope that you all enjoyed this video, and yeah, that's it for my chess video. I would normally, this is when I tell you to like and subscribe and stuff like that, but like I don't plan on making any other chess videos anytime soon. Given my current schedule with Gods Unchained, I don't see myself ending up in a chess tournament until next year, maybe next year's state championship. That's how it ended up working out here. But I hope you all enjoyed the video, and maybe we'll do this again sometime. I'll see you the next time I see you, and yeah.